of a person. So we now are in a situation where we have to do what we have to do to construct to deal with that in terms of our reputation and in terms of our habits. We have bad habits, but those habits were taught to us by the slave master. We have the book, The Miseducation of the Negro, but the problem with the miseducation of Negro is that Carter G. Woodson only wrote that book in 1930. That's when it was published. Now, which meant that it does not go back 400 years of our enslavement. So really, we can't say that we were miseducated in schools. We were miseducated on a plantation. And those habits that we have developed on the plantation are now being kept alive by us carrying it from one generation to the other.
I'm saying, that's a very interesting statement about the bad habits. And one of the things that as we speak on Labor Day, I think that's one of the things that we've gotten into, the bad habit of celebrating what white folks think is celebratory. What we call it nowadays is crackatosis. Anything the white give us is right. So we just go ahead and lean into it as we participate as though we are American. We participate as though we are the red, white, and blue flag, and that's how, and that it represents us, and we participate in all these things. And I think that's one of the main cruxes that we're having is our nature to go along with anything that the Caucasian has put out as celebratory.
Well, that's true.
Oh, go ahead.
I mean, no, that is true. And, the thing that we have to look at, and I really go back to a case that I always quote, because when I went to law school, and after I was introduced to Dred Scott, which was very early in my law school career, because I started law school at the University of Georgia, and they were still enforcing the slave codes down there. And so, obviously, I heard about Dred Scott much earlier than a lot of people did, who may have gone to some of these other law schools like Harvard and Yale, and Pennsylvania, Columbia, and those other prestigious schools. And so, with me, Dred Scott became a way of life. And after I studied it, I realized after reading Dred Scott that I needed not to study any other legal principles, because Dred Scott was it. It said everything that I needed to know. So I just got ready to prepare for the law school exams and to prepare for the bar exam, because I already knew what my place was in America, and that is I had no right that a white man was bound to respect. And that seemed to fit quite as well, and it seemed to apply to this very day.
Yeah.
So it has not died, and white folks have not changed their habits, because they are still enforcing the same law that they enforced against our ancestors back in 1857 and before. And so, when you're dealing with...
How ironic. Look at this brother, New African, on Twitter. He just posted the Dred Scott decision, too. This is a frequency, family. I didn't see this. He just posted that an hour ago. I've been on this shit.
As I've said, and anybody who's ever seen me try a case can tell you, is that I would never let a black person take witness stand.
Smart.
And the reason why I would never let a black person take witness stand is because black people have bad reputation. So what you're doing is convicting yourself by taking a witness stand, because then the jury knows that you are a person of a bad reputation, and everything that you say cannot be believed. That's the reason why we have so many blacks going to prison today, because the lawyers do not know how to represent black people, and they mistake the idea of you taking the witness stand and clearing yourself, when the only thing you're doing by taking the witness stand is convicting yourself. And when I was out there, I said I want to do case. I mean, I was not somebody who was just playing around. I was winning cases one by one. And the one thing I would tell any client that I represent, is that one, you will never take the witness stand. Two, I will never ask you what happened. And three, you will never plead guilty. And with that, you got an excellent chance of being acquitted. Now, if you decide you want to do one of those three things, you're definitely going to prison.
Dang.
Yeah, well, that's something for us to take into account right there for family out there. Take that into account. That is three things that when you're dealing with a lawyer, if you end up inside of any legal matter, one, you don't take the stand. You don't need to know what happened.
I don't need to know from you what happened. I don't know that's the client what happened, because I know I have enough other resources to find out from some other people what happened. So you don't have to ever worry about me, telling your story to somebody else or working with the DA. I don't have nothing to work with, because I didn't ask you anything. So you can never say, well, I believe Mr. Mack was cooperating with the other side. Well, why was I cooperating? I didn't know what you said. I made up my own situation what you did. I wasn't operating on what you said.
I'll tell you, I'll think about what you said, and I had entered into college, and in the epidemic, seriously,
He said, I wasn't operating on what you said.
That is very crucial to the defendant and client. If you want to defend up to your best ability, it is to not know what that client has done. I know you don't need that story. All you need to do is fix it and the mechanism for them to get off. So that's what's going on.
That's right, and that's exactly how you have to deal with it. I don't need your story at all. You know, people was talking. I represent Tawana Brawley, and back then, after Tawana had been raped by white men, Negroes started saying, "Well, you need to let the white man know what happened." I said, I don't know what happened from Tawana, because I never asked Tawana what happened. Why would I be asking her to testify when I never even asked her what happened? I mean, just like anybody else, a black woman come into my office and say, I've been raped by a white man, I don't need to ask her what happened, or why it happened, or when it happened. Because I can go back in history and know all of that.
We can find, now definitely, that's something that's key, and something I never really thought about, but right now, just thinking about it, that's something that I think a lot of my people need to keep in mind about what's going on in order to help them have a better play, especially not testifying against yourself or getting on that stand, because I know that we're looked at in a certain light, but when you just mentioned how we're just non-credible, and period, that's just, it is what it is. So that means everything that you say, you're absolutely right. Everything that you say is going to be listened to and used against you, period. Because you're black.
Absolutely. And when you don't say that, it can't be used against you because you ain't saying nothing. And when you decide to say something, it ain't gonna be used against you. So the best thing you do is sit there and be quiet and don't say nothing.
I remember you telling me about one client that you had to put on the stand and how he jumped on the attorney.
Darryl Sawyer. I mean, that was one of the most, and that was one of the reasons why you should take me to the stand, because you see, Darryl Sawyer was with three other young men, and one of the young men was on the elevator when an elderly Italian woman got on the elevator, and so this young man pulled out his gun and told give him her money. And I reckon he was impatient. I don't know what his plans were, but he hauled off and blew a brains out. And so in that particular case, all four of these young men were charged. And I'll make a long story short, but in that case, like many cases I tried, it was good for you to have a little Muhammad Ali or Jack Johnson in you. You know what I mean? Because those cases get very sticky. See, a lot of people don't know that when you practice law, that's not an easy profession, you know. And in addition to your having great legal skills, you better have some boxing skills also, and some shooting skills and whatever other kind of skills it's going to take you to save your life, because these people are not serious. And so, I had no other choice in Darrell Sawyer's case but tell him that you got to take a witness stand. Unfortunately, the law requires that in order for you to beat this case, you're going to have to tell the jury that you had no idea that anybody on the elevator had a gun, you know. And so you didn't know somebody was going to pull out a weapon and blow the woman's brains out. And so I had no choice to do that. And when I put him on the witness stand, I told him, I said, look, Darrell, you got to be like a little quiet boy now. I mean, whatever else it looks like, the jury got to get the idea that you are not the kind of person that would do something like this. And, Darrell took witness stand on direct examination by me. He did a great job. When the cross-examination came, and the prosecutor got up, and the prosecutor really didn't know what he was doing, but he hit a raw nerve when he asked Darrell Sawyer whether he had any heart or not. Now, Darrell defined heart, the word heart, differently than the prosecutor did. And so, when the prosecutor started grinning and smiling to the jury and telling Darrell, you don't have any heart, well, Darrell thought he was saying that you are a punk. You're not worthy of fighting anybody. You do things in a way as you did. And that's not what he was saying at all. What he was trying to say was to Darrell, you're not a good guy. But because Darrell saw the prosecutor call him out as a chump, it was like being on the street and a group of people out there, and you and somebody else out there, and you think that the person is dissing you, and you may decide to pull out your gun and shoot him, and that's what Darrell saw. And as a result of that, when he did that, Darrell just leaped from the witness stand. The jury was sitting right there. He leaped from the witness stand into the prosecutor's chest and beat the daylights out of him. And so, those are the kind of dangerous signs exist when you put a black person on the witness stand, because you and the prosecutor talk two different languages. And that's a real problem. You can't get that reconciled, and that can cost you, some long time in prison, which is what it did to Darrell Sawyer. But, as I said before, we had no other choice but to put him on the stand. But once he got on the stand, he and the prosecutor talk two different languages. And that's the problem in this country today. We're speaking one language, and white folks speaking another. And we don't clearly understand each other. The best thing to do is just stay on the witness stand in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. Brother, I got a question about when you speak on reparations. I have a question about reparations, and when you speak to that, is that something that we should look to as a monetary reparation? Should it be something that we should look at as something where we should be receiving land? Because I honestly don't think that they'll give us anything after. I think it's going to be more of we have to make a declaration. This is how I'm going to say, this is how I look at it, the asking for reparations, or making a demand for reparations. It's more of a demand being made to put it to the mind of our people as Africans that there is debt that is owed to us by these people, that we need to make a firm declaration on the fact that they owe us a debt. So anytime we're dealing with them, we deal with them as a oppressor who owes a debt. You understand what I'm saying? And
yeah.
That way you start taking it, any chance that you get it, and you take it every chance that you get. But I think that without that mind state, that's why a lot of times we'll be in situations where we have the opportunity to recoup something from the crackers. Recoup something from that beast, but we don't recoup it because we don't even have in our mind that ideology that they owe us something. And that's how I personally look at the call for speaking to our people on the demand for reparations.
Well, I think it's an excellent question, and I think that it can be answered in a very simple way. I mean, the reality of it is that the reparation is like anything else. The first thing when you go into a lawsuit, you anticipate that your lawyers and you have trust in your lawyers that they will get whatever is out there to be gotten. Same thing with reparations. It depends, first of all, who is actually negotiating on your behalf. But given that, I think the other thing to realize is that there's, as you indicated, various ways in which to pay a debt or repay a debt. One is, I think, in terms of land, if you check the National Registry, you'll find that there's still millions of land that is owned by this country. And some of those lands that are owned by this country have a lot of wealth on those lands. When you start talking about repayment of a debt, I think the first thing you have to do is for both sides to come clean, and particularly white man to come clean and say, well, look, this is what's available. I mean, we got these acres of land. We have a lot of oil out here. We have all these minerals and all these things that are there. And it just becomes a matter of people negotiating. But that's no different than what lawyers do every day. It's no real complication to resolve the problem, because once people say that this is what we want, then that's what you're gonna go in there and get. So I don't see how we resolve the debt as being a difficult problem.
I guess the main problem is just us having to resolve and say that somebody owes us the debt and that we want our payment.
There you go. I mean, and that's really what it boils down to, is to have the resolve and to recognize that there is a debt. And then, it's like anything else, and once you demonstrate that there is a debt, and I think anybody who's aware of history has to concede that there is a debt. Then it just becomes a matter of how do you satisfy that debt. And I'm here to say that there's a lot of wealth to be owed, because even before you get down to white people saying, well, I didn't enslave you, somebody else did, or my great-great-great-granddad did, and he's dead. Why come after me? Well, first of all, let's go after the United States, because none of this could have happened if this country wasn't an accomplice to what did happen. So first of all, let's get that resolved. How much can we get out of the United States? And then we'll go from there. But we shouldn't get caught up in somebody saying that, well, it was my great-granddad that did it, or my great-great-great-great-grandmother that did it. That's not the issue. The issue is starting from the top. None of this would have happened if this country has not given the legal shelter to allow slavery to exist. And so, therefore, you start with this country, and in tort law, and most people know this, you start with the deep pocket. I mean, that's who lawyers go after. They go after deep pocket. Who has the deep pocket? So, who becomes the person that's responsible is very simple, because the person that's responsible for all of this is the person who has the deepest pocket, and we can easily identify who that is. And so, I really cannot see any of this being difficult once we recognize and resolve that a debt exists and it must be paid. I really can't see another problem.
Well, I definitely thank you for coming on just to get into the fact of us understanding that we have to have the ideology that we need to be repaid. We have to straighten that out. And I fully believe that once we straighten out in our mind, because me, myself, personally, I started to take that into my own account that I'm old. So anytime that I'm dealing with Caucasian, I'm always dealing with him in the mode of you owe me. So I'm here to only get what you owe. So
I think that is correct. And I think that what happens is that at some point, we need to have a national political convention, where everybody's ideas are represented. And then after that, the ideas are represented, we must come to an understanding that a line must be drawn in the sand, and that a debt exists and it has to be resolved. And that, our thing to this country is to say, look, one way or the other, we're not going to continue this. You got a deadline here, and you must address this deadline, because we're not going to keep paying taxes and going.
Exactly. We're going to burn this bitch to the ground.
And we don't have no rights at all, and we're not getting any benefits from what has happened to us in the past. That's crazy. So, I think it's absolutely critical that people who can write a logical brief outlining what our position is, and other people adopting that brief, you take off from there. And I think that history is one of the best weapons in vindicating our rights. And as Malcolm X said, of all the disciplines, history is best qualified to reward our research. And I have an acronym which I call HELP, H-E-L-P. And this acronym exists because black folks need help. And help is spelled history, ethics, logic, and philosophy. That's how you spell help. And so that is what binds us together. You see, one thing that happens in our community is we certainly got to have your history, because we need to know in what direction you're headed. And that's what history does. We certainly need ethics, because that is the glue that keeps a race together. That's the reason why in this country you don't hear government officials talking about religion. They're talking about ethics. Because they don't give a hoot about religion. I mean, there's only Negro preachers and others who make some dollars who are concerned about religion. But the critical question here is ethics. And then help. The third component is logic, and that is how you think as a people, and not have to rely on others to think for you. And the fourth is philosophy, and that is your belief, how you believe, and believe in yourself, and not let others trick you into believing that they should be the persons who should control your destiny, because their philosophy is better than yours. And we know that is absolutely wrong, and that's one of the real problems we have now with the Democratic Party. Too many Negroes in the Democratic Party, and the philosophy of the Democratic Party is white supremacy,
right,
as well as the problem of the Republican Party. And so you have a political duopoly here between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And the bottom line is that it's like a stick in one hand and a half dozen in another.
Same thing. Two different things. Matt, you were speaking on the Labor Day thing, and I wanted to bring in a couple callers, but I wanted to ask you a question about, I know you had a couple things going on up there in New York, and I heard tell that you were being held up from getting to some of your clear appointments and things of that nature. So I'm just wondering, people, as you call it, could you just expand on some of the things that have been going on with you and how the law has been really working as hard to keep you from being up to tax?
Well, one thing I think people have to understand is this. You only get inducted into the Hall of Fame if you have been prosecuted for defamation, or you have been lynched, murdered, or something of that nature. Because the idea is that, white folks identify those persons who are really stepping on their toes. So, you're in a situation where you got a Negro who want to run his mouth all day long, and yet he's not stepping on anybody's toes. Then that's a Negro you better run away from, because he's not a threat to anybody at all. With me, I am one of those persons who I will always remain a thorn in their side. And, and I have never taken an oath that would denigrate my people. So when I said I would practice law, I was like Donald Trump. You know, he made an oath the other day, but on minute's notice, you know, he's ready to throw that oath away. You know, because he's down with the ultimate goal, which is in his mind destruction of black people. So whatever happens, it's not going to take him away from his oath. I took an oath, same way Donald Trump did, to let me operate as long as I could. And when I couldn't operate no longer, you know, then the system was going to move in on you. And that's what has happened to me. And since I have not been practicing law, which has never been 25 years, because, you know, they had a kangaroo hearing 25 years ago and said that, you know, that I would not cooperate, which they were true. I would not cooperate. You know, I don't have a problem. They found me guilty of what the fact was. Now, the reality of it, I wasn't charged with that, but that's what they found me guilty of, and they're absolutely correct. I would never cooperate with white supremacy. So, you know, as I leave here every day, I'm always a target, you know, wherever I go. And as I was telling people at the United African Movement, you know, you can be over there, but if ain't nobody after you, then you're a person that everybody else ought to be suspicious of. You know, they always after me, which is good, because that's where they're supposed to be. Because I'm trying to dismantle white supremacy, and I'm a threat to national security. And so, you know, one of the things recently I've been involved in putting pressure on New York in terms of attorney discipline. And the fact of the matter is that lawyers, black lawyers in particular, are being disproportionately disciplined. And those who decide to speak out for their people will definitely not only be disciplined, but they will be disbarred. And so I've been fighting that fight lately.
Wow.
And on my way up to Albany, New York on the 20th of July, there was a roadblock that was set up to intercept me and to prevent me from getting to Albany in time for the hearing. And that succeeded. And so now I have to go back to Albany on the 8th of September to deal with the charges. And I have no problem dealing with that because, you know, when we went to the hearing, I testified against New York on August 11th, and I took out a advertisement in the Amsterdam News and Our Times Press on August 6th, demanding that New York back off black lawyers. Now, when I went to the hearing, you know, I found out I was the only lawyer or quote, unquote, suspended lawyer or disbarred lawyer who had testified. No other black person in New York came to the witness stand to testify against New York. And so this is crazy. When you have lawyers who know they're being abused and they are afraid to say anything, and the question becomes, if you're afraid to say anything about yourself, what would you say about your client? What would you say about your people? You know, if you're afraid of your own personal predicament. And this is where we are. And lawyers have to answer this. You know, what in the world are you doing running around with a title, calling yourself Mr. Esquire, and you're absolutely terrified of white people?
So you're 100% correct on that. And you said that about being terrified of white people. I got one question I want to ask you before I go to the lines, and then I'm going to hit the lines up. But I'm one of the younger ones. I've seen a lot of different things. New Black Panther Party come in, come out, and I've seen this guy, Malik Zulu Shabazz, a lot of times. And so I've seen something. I'm into the social media, and I'm looking on Facebook. There was a flyer for some type of meeting that they're having in Georgia where the brother was supposed to show up. But on the top of the flyer, it said Malik Zulu Shabazz, attorney at war.
Let me say this, and I don't want to really get too much into Malik until a certain time and we talk face to face. But, you know, I would feel more comfortable with Malik if he was indicted and prosecuted for some crime and he faced the possibility of either the loss of his liberty or death itself.
Right.
You know, and so my point is, you know, you can come to New York, for example, at Malik Lula Shabazz and talk stuff. And then when you leave, if you haven't been indicted for talking stuff in New York, then, you know, it makes me suspect that something else may be going on in your life. Because, you know, I've been talking myself, and I've been under indictment and prosecution and everything else. So I would like to find out how that Malik can come to New York and do things that nobody else can do, and then go home and speak a very comfortable evening. You know, and that's what bothers me, you know, because it seems like what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And if I'm the one that white folks are always picking on, and Malik is coming into town and selling wolf tickets and never having to clean up no wolf tickets, you know, it just makes me question what is really going on in Malik's life.
But, you know, I'm only asking because I seen the title, and, you know, just immediately I just had to ask him. It was only one question I really wanted to ask him. One question was, I said, Chucky and Wolf. I said, well, you know, brother, how much do you work with Baba Automatic? And the response was, well, Automatic is too difficult to work with. He don't like working with people. He don't like working with people. I said, well, okay, then. I said, well, you know, if my thought was this right here, all that, this the respect that I have for you is that I think that you've been around enough rooms and enough spaces long enough that if you deem not to work, if you difficult to work with, this for a reason. Because it don't seem like you too difficult to work with in certain sections. So there's certain people that you might be difficult to work with. So I said, all right there, brother, I understand what you're saying. Clear, he's just too rough to work with. And it gave me a confidence as to why you're too rough to work with, because you're going to get him in trouble. You know, why? He's in trouble.
And, you know, this takes me back, but, you know, the first two jobs that I got in New York, I started working at the Harlem Assertion of Rights, which was a poverty program. You know, and I became a poverty lawyer because that's really what I wanted to be when I graduated from law school. You know, a lot of lawyers were trying to get into government agencies. Some lawyers were trying to be law partners, you know, for this or that, and some people wanted to be prosecutors. But I wanted to be a poverty lawyer. Now, the reason why I wanted to be a poverty lawyer is because most of our people are in poverty. All right, so therefore, you know, I was going to be with them, and we try to fight this whole issue. And so, you know, but the interesting thing is that black lawyers are a little bit different than the black masses. And so, you know, when you go into a situation as I did at Harlem Assertion of Rights, I ended up, or at least I was credited with getting rid of all the white lawyers and bringing in all black lawyers, you know. And so as a result of me being credited with that, we had an all-black office up there in Harlem. And the next thing I know, the brothers and sisters were knocked on my door one night. I was preparing a case for another next day. And they said, brother, we want to talk to you in the law library. And I said, oh, okay. You know, I was standing myself, what do they want to talk to me about? You know, I mean, they would be working like I am. But anyway, I went on in there, and they said, and this was in 1976, and they said, we want you out of here. And I said, well, brother, why? And they said, because you don't like white people. And I said, well, how did you know that? I mean, you wasn't there when I was getting rid of them. I mean, you know, and you don't know why I was doing it. So why would you say that? Well, we heard you don't like white people, and we want you out of here. So I was fired. In October of 1976, I was fired, and I had to leave, and then I went and joined the National Coalition of Black Lawyers. And so while I was down there, they got some funds, and it was Juvenile Defense Project. And actually, I done some research and, you know, found out that New York had drafted and the apartheid law of South Africa for youth. And this law rose out of the Soweto uprising. You know, so New York decided to write its own law to war on black youth in New York. And so, you know, so it was a good purpose for us, you know, to get the money and try to fight it, and the fight I did. But in the meantime, again, some of the black lawyers said, well, we want you out of here. I said, why? He said, because you don't have nothing but black people. And I'm saying to myself, well, you know, if there's nothing wrong with me only hiring black people, you know, I mean, that's how white folks do. You know, nobody's mad at them. Nobody calls them racist, you know, for what they do. So what I'm trying to say is that the problem with the legal profession, and this is what people need to understand, the initial black lawyers in this country was trained by white lawyers. And it was initially an apprenticeship program. That's how lawyers first started. And so after a period of time, when we weren't able to go into law school, we were going to a white law school. And so we were still being taught by white lawyers, white professors. And then after a certain period of time, we started having our own little schools, which really never made a big dent in the legal profession, but they were ours. But we were using their case methods and the way that they taught us how to represent our own people. So what I'm saying is that the legal profession itself can really brainwash lawyers, you know. And there was an article I just finished reading in Bloomberg magazine talking about lawyers getting dumber. And I agree with that. And I agree with it because, you see, when we first started practicing law, we were taught by others who were not teaching us how to represent our people. So we learned how to represent other folks. That's the reason why, you know, the legal profession is the way it is today, because nobody's ever taught black people how to represent black people. And so, you know, and because nobody's ever taught us that, we have this belief that the white man's ice is colder and his sugar is sweeter. You know, and so when, you know, somebody like me come along, they're going to be allegations, well, he don't know how to get along with people. I do know how to get along with people. I get along with people very well. I go into juries, all white juries, and they end up loving me. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I get along with white folks very well. You know, it's just that white folks need to understand that I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. It's just simple as that. I'm not backing up an inch. You know, and I'm not doing no tap dance in the courtroom or nothing else like that. But it's just that I say what I mean and mean what I say. And there are some white people who are intelligent enough to recognize that you need to respect a man like that.
No bullshit.
And yes, sir. Yes, sir. But, you know, I understand exactly where you're coming from. And as I said, you know, when the brother said that to me, then we can see why they'll push you out. You know, people they're trapped in that. Whereas this black man shouldn't be hiring so many black people with two black men.
Right. And that's bad.
You know, that's what because, you know, like I said, and the newest difference because that's the nigga writing. When anything, I feel bad. You got to think about it. If anything black, out too black, there's too black, too many of us in here. And that's just bad. Get out of here. We need more white in here. So,
yeah,
you know.
And you know, and my thing is, I don't retreat from my position because I love black people. You know, I let white folks know that I love black people. And if I got a choice, I want to be around black people. I want to have black lawyers rather than white lawyers. And, you know, I mean, look, back in the early 1980s and all of that, when you had lawyers like William Conklin around, who was considered very progressive lawyers, Bill and I were very close. But I told Bill, any case that I'm involved in, and you're involved in, or any other white lawyer is involved in, I'm going to always be first chair.
No
So y'all can always look to me. Always. You know, if that's the situation, if that's not the situation, you don't see me around white boys at all. I didn't dislike Bill. I just told him the way it was. I wouldn't take orders from white folks.
I'll say. And, you know, that's the steps that we have to start taking. Automatically, that's just up to you. Whether or not, you know, we'll start making a couple calls to get some questions.
Oh yeah, knock yourself out, do whatever you want to do.
All right, there. You know, our family, we're going to come to the line right now. We're going to open up the lines and get y'all in here. Let's see right here. And when you come in, please state your name and your question. State your name and where you and also where you're calling from, if you like to. There we go. That's how I open the Feet on the Ground Radio. With Barbara Alternatics. You come in, our family, give your name and question, New York City. I'll see you out there.
This brother Baker, New York. Somebody, can you speak on the thing with the violation, the traffic violation that you ran into, and what the outcome of that situation could be, or speak on Cuomo's thing against you as far as travel is concerned?
Well, you know, and that's a very good question, because you see, in 1994, I formed the Freedom Party because I believe that black people need a political voice other than the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. Now, it has not been easy for me to really maintain this because as our ancestor, Kwame Ture, also known as Stokely Carmichael, said, there's going to take a period of time when our people have to get a political education. So, you know, while you're forming a political party, you must also take time out to allow those who want a political education to get a political education. And that's the reason why I virtually write every day, in addition to everything else, because you can just be a leader of an organization or a spokesperson for an organization, but you got to also be a teacher, you know, so you have to wear several hats, because our people have had a rough time politically. Right here in New York, for example, there was a Constitutional Convention of 1821. And in that Constitutional Convention, which came about 3 years before blacks in New York was finally emancipated, the Constitutional Convention said that white men had a right to a democracy, but Negroes had a right only to a democracy. And that meant that basically white men on the skin color alone were able to participate at the ballot box. But for a black person to participate at the ballot box, you had to own the property. Now, somebody who's been on the plantation all along, the one thing you don't have any property. So that basically meant that we didn't have anything. And so this idea of a political party is a real threat to the political duopoly which exists in New York. That political duopoly being the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And in 1994, I was in Albany federal court, and at that time, there was testimony that said that black people do not have a right to a political party, because we were trying to get ballot access, you know, where we could run our own candidate on our own party. And so they said, no, you don't have a right to a political party. So, you know, the hostility exists of anybody who's trying to form a political party. So that's not something that white people welcome, you know, because what we don't ask and don't understand that both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party or Fortune 500 corporations.
Huh.
You know, just like General Motors is a Fortune 500 corporation, just like Ford is a Fortune 500 corporation, just like General Foods is a Fortune 500 corporation. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party are Fortune 500 corporations. And these white people see us like they see slaves on a plantation. And I put that in quotation marks. And that, you know, our job.
If they're both Fortune 500 corporations, family, then they have investors. If they have investors, that means money. And if their investors are corporate, then that means that this is not a democracy. That means that this is fascism. By definition.
Simply go out there and labor from sun up to sundown and allow them to take all the profits, and we get nothing. So, you know, when you start talking about forming a political party, then that means you're talking about competition. And any form of competition with white folks is dangerous.
Huh.
You know, if I was over there in Brooklyn, and I was getting more business than anybody else in the building. I was on 16 Court Street, which is the lawyer's building in Brooklyn. And people was lining up at the door. And so white lawyers looked at that and said, wait a minute, you taking food out of my mouth, you know, and something got to be done with that. And so they took an action. That's what it means when you're a threat to white supremacy. You're a real threat when you start taking money out of their pocket. And so when I got ready to go up to Albany, it was pretty well known on the 28th of July that I was going to go up there for this attorney discipline hearing. Because I've been a champion of that even before that time. If you go to my website, www.reinstatealtonmatic.com, www.reinstatealtonmatic.com, then you will see that I have written an avalanche of letters to the Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals, as well as to Governor Cuomo, as well as to Preet Bharara, the U.S. Attorney. So I've been very hot on them, and they finally granted us the right to have an attorney disciplinary hearing, in which I, believe that I was pretty much responsible for. And so when I was stopped up there, I was stopped on the guise that I had not paid taxes in 25 to 30 years. And they were right. I have not paid taxes in 25 or 30 years. Now, there's two arguments I could make to that. The first argument I could make is that I haven't had income in 30 years. So, I mean, how do you pay taxes on income that you never had? You know, I mean, that's the first line of argument. The second argument is, why should I pay tax anyway? I mean, even despite the fact that I don't have had income, and therefore I had no reason to pay taxes on a legal basis.
Right.
But from a political point of view, I don't have no right to vote. I don't have a right to representation. So why should I be paying taxes even on that matter? So, you know, but what they cited me for is I had no business driving in New York. And so, you know, I do have a license. I never been suspended or nothing that matter. But they claim that because you don't pay your taxes, you have no right to travel. And my position is I have a right to travel, first of all, a human being. And so I have a right to travel just by the mere fact of my status. The second reason why I have a right to travel is that I'm the chairperson of a political party. How can you have a political party and not have the head of the political party being able to travel inside and outside of the state? So that's the circumstances that I'm be fighting up in Albany on Tuesday.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We're going to move down the line. Thank you for the question, Brother Baker. down the line. Let's see right here. Right now, Open Field on the Ground Radio. State your name, any questions or comments for Father Estimatic. Going twice, like Powell.
Again, that's an excellent question. See, I mean, we haven't said anything yet which takes us off the table, okay? An equitable argument, that's what you gotta understand. We're talking about separating and develop our own.
Call out here in California. I'll see you out here. You got a question or comment?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Right, Powell. State your name and question.
This is Brother Henry. Only comment that I have is I didn't really agree with us being partners. I would say we're owners. We was here before any type of people was on this landmass, and I think we should go ahead and separate.
Yeah.
Because even if you take what they supposed to give us, they have the military and all this other stuff means to take it back. I think we should just separate and develop our own. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you certainly have a right to your personal opinion, and I don't think your personal opinion flies in the face of anything that I have said. The reality of it is, in a court of equity, it takes land, labor, and capital in order for that to be a productive society. So, you look for who owns the land, who owns the capital, and who owns the labor. And so my point was making an equitable argument. That's what you gotta understand. We're talking about equity now.
No.
I know.
Equity. And making an equitable. Oh, no, I'm not. Oh, no, but you get ahead of yourself. So we haven't even got there yet. Let's think of where we are. Okay? I mean, all those other things that you say may be very well true. But let's do it step by step first. And then we'll get to that, whether it be a reasonable doubt. Okay?
One quick question. What is the time frame that we're looking at, man? Because we're not getting any younger. I mean, like, are we looking at 5 years of equitable argument, 10 years equitable argument? Like, at each step or each process, what is the time frame? So if they say no to this, what's the next step, and how long we going to wait and argue that and so on and so forth? Because me personally, I'm ready to move forward right now.
Again, that's an excellent question. See, I mean, we haven't said anything yet which takes us off the table, okay? We still on the table, we still having a very intelligent discussion, all right? You know what I mean? So, you don't say anything, I don't say anything, and I'm like you, it's just like Dr. King said, why we can't wait. I mean, look, that's not a problem with that. I understand. And you're right. When you engage in a struggle, brother, there are four elements of a struggle. Those elements are you first have to have goals. Now, those goals are unfortunately not going to be my goals or not going to be your goals. They're going to be the people's goals, okay? That second thing that we have to have is a timetable. That's what you're talking about now, all right? And the third thing we have to do is develop a strategy and the tactics that are necessary to achieve that. So, I can understand very much as 40 years. You will be crazy not to be impatient. You know what I mean? And nobody's asking you to take a chill pill and not deal with reality. I mean, I can understand that very well. And so my point is this. Now, this is what I have done, because I'm only one person trying to really get something going, And in a presidential election year, it seems to me that some of us will recognize that what Frederick Douglass said is true. Power concedes nothing without a demand.
Right.
And it would seem like some of us will recognize. If that is the case, then my position is, and I hope that we can promote this nationwide, start in various regions of the country. And one of the things I wanted to do on October 3rd was to kick this off in D.C. And then from there, we can plot what regions of the country, whether it's California, whether it's Minnesota, whether it's Alabama, wherever it is, we can develop how we can do this so we all of the parts together. You know,
Okay.
all right, but what you're saying is absolutely correct. But the starting line that I have is October 3rd. October 3rd. You know, and we're in negotiation there with the University District of Columbia to have a big kickoff there in DC. And then after that, we're going to move hopefully throughout the nation where we can eventually come together in 2016 with our own National Black Political Convention, and we can sit down as a people, all parts of the country, sit together to develop what our goals are, what our timetable is, what our strategy is, and what our tactics are.
All right. Now, how are we supposed to demand? Because, you know, European devil, the only thing he hears is money and bloodshed. Outside of that, and even in the money part, like, they can always change the currency. So, like,
Yeah.
he only hears trust.
Okay, listen. Well, let's say this, brother.
Listen.
Okay, okay.
Hold on one thing on both parties. Brother Henry, we're gonna let Brother Maddox answer your question, and because we got a lot of other callers on the line.
Okay, no doubt.
Brother, what I want to, and it's going to be very short, I just want to interject something. So, Brother Henry, who may not necessarily get a chance to hear me that often, you know, I can sort of put it out there, is that I've always said two things about white people. They're bilingual. They're bilingual. And this fits exactly what you just saying. That's what I told you. We're on the same page. Now, you know, because you never heard me before, maybe, it doesn't mean that we're on different pages. White people are bilingual. They only speak two languages. Those are legalese and military science. Those are two languages they speak. All right? So, you know, we all got, when we step out here, we all got to be ready for legalese and military science. Because that's the way they roll. You know, and whichever way they roll, that's the way they roll, that's what we have to roll with them. You know, and let the best race win. I mean, that's all that boils down to. I don't have no problem with that, you know, because with me, death is not a frightening affair. All right, with me, because I've been involved in the civil rights movement. I have never been lynched. I have been beaten by 13 police officers, thrown in a jail cell to die. You know, so I have done it all. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's like I'm living on borrowed time now, brother. You know, so none of this stuff scares me. All right, you know, and I'm just glad to be here today to continue to talk to others so that you will have enough of what I believe in before my appointed time comes close. All right, because we all got to leave here at some point. But when I leave, I want to have left with the next generation as much wisdom and knowledge as I can conceivably do. And so that's where I spend my lifetime now, because I have acquired a lot through experience and through competition and other ways to know quite a bit about white supremacy. I don't want you to have to reinvent the wheel. I want you to be able to go and say what the Maddox said and take that as the truth and move from there.
I'll say. Hey, brother Henry was a brother. He came in, brother Henry, I'm going to beat your line, but that's what the statement that he made about that. So I know that y'all on the same page. So he said, we don't have no reason to keep reinventing the wheel. We got elders who already have laid it down. Let's just go see what the elders say and let's move forward with what they said.
There you go. That's what it's about.
You know what I'm saying? Well, we're going to go down the line. Let's get these callers on in. The line is open. Welcome to Feet on the Ground Radio. You can revolve automatic. Take your name, question, and comment. If you want New York, going once, going twice. All right. We're going out to our other New York callers. We have East Coast filling it up right now. New York, welcome to Feet on the Ground Radio. All our automatic. Take your name and question or comment. Come on in. I got your line open. Over one. Going once. Going twice. All right, and we're gonna move on down again. Like Paul, we got a couple callers out here. Don't even mention their name, Barbara. Come on, don't be afraid. Obama Maddox. Come on, man. The Street on the Ground Radio. Welcome to Street on the Ground Radio. Just a question and comment. Come on in and state your name first. I know y'all flying out there. Very, very quiet. And also, for the people who are in the chat room, inside our internet chat room, if you have a question or comment and you're listening in on the internet chat room, just put your question inside of our chat room, and I'll go ahead and ask Problematic the question. But also, while I'm going down the line, Problematic, is there anything that the people need to be aware of, any upcoming events besides the Brooklyn event? Are there any other events that the people should be aware of and trying to get out to, or what's the next thing that you have going on?
Well, as I said before, you know, in order for anything to grow, you have to first plant a seed. That's why, you know, you have to be a planter. You have to put a seed in the ground, and then you have to fertilize the seed and have it grow. Now, what we're talking about now is I will put seeds in the ground. I will be in Atlanta, Georgia, on October 9th. I will be in Atlanta, Georgia. I'll be there for Friday. I'll be in Atlanta, Georgia on October 9th. Now, on October 3rd, I will be in Washington, D.C., as I had previously indicated. And what we are trying to do now is create a groundswell, because we have waited too long for other people to act, and they're not acting. I mean, you know, we're supposed to have black elected officials, we're supposed to have leading blacks and all that, but they're all quiet, and they're quiet for a reason. And the reason why they're quiet is because they don't represent us anyway. All right, and the white man has told them to keep quiet and let this thing blow over. Our position is we don't want to keep quiet. You know, we don't want it to blow over. And so that's why we're making noise. Now, there are some black people out here who are dumb enough to think that their so-called leaders can call the shot and do whatever, but they can't. You know, that didn't happen on the plantation, and we still on the plantation. You know, and Harriet Tubman said if they only knew that they were slaves, I could have freed a lot more of them. Our problem is we don't know that we are still enslaved. I mean, so, but the point is, we're going to be in Washington, D.C., and we're going to be in Atlanta, Georgia, and we're going to be in other cities. And so we're making this announcement as how we're going to develop this. So we have to have a national black political convention. There's an old saying that our people came up with before the white man. And that is, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. If you fail to plan, then you fail to plan. Now, what happened was, around 1830, the color convention movement started, where black people every year would assemble somewhere, discuss their problems, and fight how they want to liberate themselves. This started way before Abraham Lincoln said he had freed the slaves. He understood that we were going to give them free anyway. But they weren't waiting on Lincoln, you know. And a lot of people, I think that our people were sitting idle. They came to this country and they learned real fast. Our ancestors were very smart, very intelligent. And this is the reason why Dred Scott, Chief Justice Roger Taney said, no Negro has a right to white man's respect. Because Taney wasn't talking about the, quote, slaves. He already knew they were on the plantation. He was talking about the, quote, free Negroes, who Taney knew were going to cause an uprising. That's what that was about. That's why you have to study these cases and really know your history. You know, whether it's the Labor Day history, who gave us Labor Day, and who should be the first laborers, or whether it is Scott versus Stafford, and the threat that free Negroes gave to this country. You know, we got to know all of that. And so Taney said that, you know, this is something that we got to deal with because these Negroes are dangerous, because they came here and the first political convention in this country was not by the Democratic Party. The first political convention in this country was not by black people. All right, the Democrats learned from us as to why it was important for them to have conventions. Our problem is that we just don't know enough of our history, most of us, to understand this whole process. But as you learn more of your history, you begin to realize the strength of our people and how we can overcome them. So, it's not a question saying, well, we know the white man is the devil. He probably is. All right, we know the white man is the snake. He is. But that's not the issue. The issue is that wherever he was, we've been here 40 years. He got rid of yet. And let's give us out there some credit for still being around a devil or a snake.
That's warrior. That's that warrior. That's been brought up in it. That's that warrior spirit. But before I hit the line again, there was a question in the chat room. You mentioned earlier that there was 4 necessary parts to in the struggle. Right. There were 4 necessary parts of the struggle. And right. One of the guests that was in the chat room, they heard you, but they didn't get clear exactly what 4 parts they was asking. Could you just repeat those 4 parts for them real quick?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Those 4 parts of these, A, you have to have goals. That will be definable goals. That's the first thing you do when you sit down. Second thing, you got to look at a timetable. And you got to recognize that certain things got to be done by a certain period. And you have to work towards those. Then you have to develop the strategy in order to bring that about. And the strategy is the overall view of how you approach the problem. The tactics are the individual things that you do in terms of implementing the tactics. But the 4 critical elements are goals, timetable, strategy, and tactics. And that's part of military science. And the reason why they call me the attorney at war is because I always imposed military science in every case that I tried. I wasn't like a Negro lawyer walk up in there with a briefcase and all that. I was going in the courtroom as a warrior. That's how you have to go. You have to use military science to deal with that, and the very tools of military science. Well, that's how you have to fight folks. Yeah. I mean, so when the brother said earlier, well, you know how these devils are, man. I know how they are. That's why I perfected military science. That's why I perfected legalese. Because I know exactly how they are. And that's the reason why I told the brother, yeah, we're on the same page, brother. You're not bringing anything to the table that I'm not aware of, or nor am I afraid of, because I've been down this road many times, and that's just the reality. But that's what we have to do. We have to understand our approach to things and begin to solve the problem. I mean, look, the greatest warrior in the world is Hannibal. And they set him up in West Point right now. That's how great he was. And some of us are still Hannibal. That's why they own us all the time. That's why some of our brothers are behind bars. Because they suspect they may be a Hannibal.
Right. All right. Yeah, they suspect they might be after the next Hannibal. That might be him. Jay Edgar Hoover, he's looking for that black science.
There you go.
We're gonna move down the line real quick. Mama Smith's gonna stay in here for a little bit with us, so we're gonna go to the line. Texas, the line is open. Welcome to Feet on the Ground Radio with Bob Orson Maddie. State your name and question and comment.
How you doing, Bob? There's President Topsy.
Thank you.
My question, man, I heard you say earlier about not getting on the stand, and I just want you to could you elaborate a little bit more on that? As far as does that go for any kind of case that we're involved in?
Yeah, well, it goes for any case in which you're the defendant and the other side has to prove the case. And my point is this: first of all, when I go in the courtroom, I make sure that all of your rights are enforced as they claim they are. You see, too many times black men are convicted because somebody withheld some evidence. They knew that you were innocent, but they hid the evidence, and therefore the jury convicted you. Well, you see, with me, it's a war step by step.
Right.
With me. I mean, everybody over in the courtroom will tell you that I wore from day one. When I walk into the courtroom, everybody got on notice that the warrior lawyer is present, you know, and we getting ready to war. I mean, I brought thousands of people in the courtroom to see me operate, you know, and people know that. So it's not a matter of how the basic is dead. There are people out there who will listen, I'm sure, that can tell you that. But you have to take these people inch by inch, foot by foot, yard by yard, and mile by mile.
Yes, so I just want to be, because I'm feeling that, man. I just want to know, so from here out, I should just start suggesting to all my brothers, don't never take a stand no matter what.
Absolutely, no. What they should do is never take a witness stand and go nose to nose, toe to toe, and eyeball to eyeball with the prosecutor. And recognize that he or she is the enemy.
Absolutely.
Rick Black House.
How you doing? This is his wife, Sister
Okay.
And I just want to say, Black Power to you. I was enjoying the way I talk about how you handle it in Pepperwood. Much love and respect, pretty brother. Thanks. Please.
I will appreciate it. Thank you very much, sister.
All right.
Black Power, the family down there in Texas representing his wife. We're gonna open up the lines. Next up, we got some more in the East Coast, New York City. Black Power goes from the Feet on the Ground Radio. Question and comment about automatic.